Okay. So we're just going to go through the template that I input in your ILP folder. I have the template, and then I'm going to show you an example along the way through each slide. So it should be fairly quick here. Let's see. Share my screen. All right, can you see my screen? Let's see. Perfect. Okay. So in the template, this is what the template looks like. It's plain. It just has on each slide what you need to have on your slide. Your slide can look however you want. The background can look whatever you can add to it. It just the minimum has to be what's on each of these black and white slides. So the title of your inquiry and your name, the presenter. And then here's an example of a previous candidate's title slide and her name. So look, she added, some little gifts and just made it her own cute. So you can have that be whatever you want. The next slide is introduction. So you're going to be having your teaching assignment, your school site, and why you chose to do this inquiry. So why was this the focus of your inquiry? So she has a picture of herself there. You do not have to have a picture of yourself, but if you do want a picture of yourself, you can definitely add that. So she has her name, what she teaches. She added some information there. So she decided to put how many students she had, how many boys and how many girls. And this is the why. So her need was the why she did this inquiry. And her why was that most of her students struggle with anxiety and fidget often, which distracts them. So that was the why of her inquiry. The next slide is going to be about your growth goals, and these are in your ILP. So the growth goals right before for your inquiry 3, those growth goals, you can literally just pop them into this slide. So her growth goal was 2.6 and 2.3. So she decided to add a little bit extra. So she did put her growth goals, but she decided to add a little note here. She noticed that some of her students have a difficult time paying attention, following along, and participating, no matter how engaging she tries to make the content. They tend to start getting distracted by others that are following along. So I'm interested to see if the different support options I can provide for students who have a hard time following classroom routines, procedures, and norms. So she put a Y, those were her growth goals. You do not have to. You can literally just list your growth goals there. So definitely up to you. Then it's the focus question. So each slide that says just a title, like focus question, you do need to have a slide in your presentation that says focus question. And then on the next slide, it would actually have your focus question. So she has focus question. How can I implement multiple strategies? She should have a focus question slide there too. How can I implement multiple strategies of support in order to increase the amount of students following classroom norms and as a result, increase student achievement? So the focus question that's on your ILP, you would just pop into this slide. Research. So the research that we have in your ILP for inquiry 3 in your case would be the research that you put in here. So the source and what did you learn from the source? So you wrote a little blurb for each of your sources, and that should be letting you know, like letting everyone know what you learned from the source and why it supported you in this inquiry. So here are her research items. So she just has each of her, where she got her research from, and just a little blurb or quote from the research that helped her with the inquiry. Action plan. So when it says title slide, you need to have a action plan title slide. So she just has a slide that says action plan. And again, that can look, however you want, as long as it just says action plan. And then your action plan is your strategies. So the next slide will be your first strategy. So her first strategy was fidgets. So on this slide, you're going to have what your strategy was. You're going to put your implementation. So in your ILP, we have the action plan section where you described how you were implementing your strategies. That's what you're going to put on this slide. She bullet pointed. You can definitely do that, or you can have a paragraph, notes, however you feel is going to help you present it the best. So oh, I have another person joining us. 1 second. Hello, iPhone 35. Hi, can you hear me? Okay. Well, we're in the middle of the presentation here for your inquiry presentation. We are on the first strategy slide. So those who just joined, if you would like me to go back at the end, just let me know. So she has all her pictures here, and your pictures can come from your evidence. She put it on the slide so when she's presenting, it can just kind of remind her of what to talk about and show that the students were using them. She also added down here some of the things that she had bought as fidgets to, just let us know what she was using. Okay. Then strategy 2, so same thing, just your next strategy. Her second strategy was timers. So she decided to add a quote for each one based on her research. So she added a quote, and then she has how she implemented it. And these were some pictures of her timers that she used, the different kinds, and her students in class while they were being implemented. And then when you're presenting, you would just describe the pictures that you chose to add in your presentation. Okay, and then assessments and data, again, a title slide. So she has her title slide and she added, obviously fidgets and timers are her strategies. So she added some of that. So her data collection, so she's going to show pre-assessment data and post-assessment data first. So she has both on one slide. She has her pre-assessment on the left, her post-assessment on the right. You can have one slide for each, or you can put them side by side, whichever is more comfortable for you to help you present. So if you want to just talk about your pre-assessment first, you can do that. Or you can have them side by side like this. So she went through each of the categories and described them, and she has her graphs. And then you have your data of pre and post compared. So this is her comparison graph. So she has her pre data and her post data. And obviously when she's presenting, she just talked about her findings based on her data. Oh my goodness. There we go. Okay, and then the next one is her analysis. So basically what she learned from her data. So her data analysis, her class is more focused during math time. That's something she learned. Less talking and off topic once they were using the fidgets and the timers, transitions were quicker, and she had some better classroom management. So those are some of the things that she learned while implementing these strategies. So that's what you're going to have when you look at your comparison graph, you're going to talk about what you learned from that. And it doesn't all have to be positive. She has positive things. But if there are some things, sometimes we learn that our strategies didn't work, and that's okay. And we can also talk about that. So reflect and apply. Again, this is going to be a title slide. So she has her reflect and apply title slide. And then she is going to talk about what she learned from her inquiry as a whole. So she decided to talk about both of her strategies. You can use your final reflection as a starting point on your ILP to talk about what you learned. or you can break it up by strategy, what you learned from each of the strategies. So she decided to talk about some of the things she learned with the students using fidgets and with the students using the timers, her implementing those in the classroom. Next steps. Next steps is going to be what you're going to do now. Now you have this data, you know that your strategies work or don't work. What do you want to do next? So her next step was she wants to continue using both strategies. She wants to use the strategies in other content areas because she only used them in math. So she wanted to use them in other content areas. And she wants to research some heavier duty fidgets because hers were breaking because she had bought some cheaper ones. So those were her next step after this specific inquiry. So that's what you would put on this, just your next steps. What do you want to do now that you have this information from your inquiry? And that's it. That's the end. So we do want you to have some type of slide like this at the end that says, thank you. Do you have any questions? Just to kind of prompt you in your presentation to allow for questions. We do have teachers that put maybe their email address because they, might want to email you later and ask you for some of the things you used or ideas. So we want to keep that line of communication open. Let me check the chat here. Sorry, Anna, I'm just looking at the chat. You have to do it like a heading slide and then separate slide. Yes. Okay, so let me answer the first question. So yes, you have to have a title slide and then separate from the information. In the template, it will say title slide in parentheses, and if it says that, it has to have its own title slide. Okay. And then you can just have the like what it says on the slide, like the bare minimum, and then you can just say what you learned. So like on your what I learned from this inquiry slide, it does have to have something there, but it doesn't have to be a lot. It could be a couple bullet points and then you just talk about it more. And then do we have to add what we learned from the research okay, perfect. I'm glad you asked that. So on your research, you do have to have the source on there, but you can just orally tell the audience what you learned from that source. So you don't have to have like bullet points or a paragraph for each one. You can just have like the source if it was an article or a picture of it or if it was a video, but you don't have to have bullet points. You can just talk to them about it. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Any other questions? Perfect. Okay, so this is due, all of your inquiry items are due the 21st. This is due the 28th. And then obviously I'm going to be helping you as you're working on it. So